Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. I am the Desert Claw, and if you're just coming in, do me a favor and smash the like button and subscribe for more content. Helps out the channel, get all those things out of the way. And chapter 261, 262 is what we'll be talking about today in Fire Force, which will be the first thing we talk about. And that sprung up on us pretty quickly. We were behind a little bit because of our translators had to catch up. And the 263 Raw, I believe, is out. Might even get these chapters right. Let me make sure I'm not screwing this up. Yeah, 261, 262 out now. 263 Raw, ready to go. So if you want to peek at that, feel free. But we're going to be talking about those. Black Clover's current chapter. And my impressions of the first episode of Tokyo Revengers, which a viewer recommended, and I'm very glad they did because I actually liked what I saw so far. So, all right, so let's get into Fire Force, chapter 261. Vulcan and Arthur have arrived at the Dragon Lord's castle within the Dragon Quest game, and basically Arthur's thanking Vulcan for his assistance during this whole thing and how he's gotten this far. And how he's keeping cool in a crazy situation. He's just basically thanking him for being a great colleague and a great person. Arthur's just being very forward, which is really good. And Vulcan's kind of questioning what the heck he's up to. But then Arthur mentions that he can't stop thinking about you. And nobody really knows what's happened to him since that time where Giovanni took over his body. And then I had speculated, not really... it seemed very familiar to an old movie I saw, the original Fly, where it was possible that you and Giovanni's bodies switched. And since that's happened, and obviously Yu's body infernalized as well, or something. He turned to something. Don't know. It could have been something else. But so they're talking about that. And the interesting thing is Vulcan's going over the history of when you met him. And the first thing I want to point out here, and clearly everyone who's a fan of Okubo's work recognizes that doll he's wearing, or he's holding right there, is Excalibur from Soul Eater. Excalibur was the most hilarious, annoying weapon on the planet. Bakame. Voiced by the same voice actor as Dio, which is even funnier. I don't know what to think about all these Soul Eater cameos. I mean, they're everywhere. I have a theory. A lot of my theories haven't come out to be true. They're just fun theories. But now that Adola and the real world have merged, it's perhaps likely that this Excalibur that Vulcan has built, and with Arthur's super duper imagination perception powers, that sword becomes sentient and becomes Excalibur once this whole event is complete. That is where I'm leaning towards there, and you'll see why later. So he's like, sometime after Giovanni dealt with my dad and my grandpa, he started showing up day after day. He just kept showing up to Vulcan's office, and he asked every time if he'd be able to be his apprentice. And he was always holding the Excalibur doll, and you would just sometimes hang outside Vulcan's place all the time. And he talked about how orphans are usually taken in by the Holy Soul Church, but for some reason you did not want to go to one of those. I wonder why. Maybe you had a sixth sense that things aren't on the up and up on those orphanages. So, yeah, the Excalibur plushie is crazy, right? I totally agree again. And like, you start thinking about those. The first time I saw the anime, like 2 episodes of Bakame. Like, I can't handle that. But you get like this close up of the Excalibur doll, and he basically said that he always carried around a doll made of odds and ends, and apparently you want to become an engineer, and that's why eventually Vulcan ended up taking him in. And then soon after, we know Lisa came because she was an undercover agent for Giovanni, and then they became a family. And he'd always talk about kind of like seeing you as like a little brother, because you would always imitate what Vulcan was doing. And he swore to protect him like he would as a big brother. So, you know, He said them. So I wonder if he saw himself as a big brother Lisa too, but clearly she's a romantic interest now. So maybe it's more like father, mother, son. Or maybe, I don't know. But Vulcan starts to break down that he couldn't save his family and keep them safe. And good old boy Arthur, man, just, you know, holds it together. And he just says, I'll fix it. I got this. I got you, bro. He basically says, you, Dragon, Shinra, wherever they are, with the Excalibur you built me, I will find a way. Like, he could say, I don't know what he means by that. I'm assuming he means that he considers, because he says you and Dragon, like he doesn't want to fix Shinra, because he probably sees Shinra as broken, because I think Arthur has always been able to see that Shinra is two people. So let's see here. And then we get a nice little close-up of the 8th, and they're helping people get through shelters, and they're trying to keep everyone's spirits up. But we actually even get a cameo from Maki's dad too. And just, why is nothing changing? Why is the cataclysm still go on? And then we get a close up of Licht and Joker. In the end, Licht says, in the end, the majority of humans are nothing but fuel for the fire for the one who sent this emotion. And he says that he can't help but feel like there is any reason in helping a worthless mob who does not comprehend the story happening around them, and just to run around panicking. And then Joker says something interesting. He says, you think mobs are worthless? And then Licht opines, no matter the era, civilizations are always constructed by a small portion of people that inhabit them. So he's basically saying the people that shine. Or like main characters in a story. We'll use it that way. Like the more prominent characters are the things that often are seen by history or seen by whatever. And then evil Sumier pops in to talk to the viewer once again. It was not to talk to the 8th or everybody on Earth. She's talking to the viewer. She says, you are wasting your time, Fire Force. Who cares about a bunch of brainless insects? As long as powerful people are despairing, the cataclysm will never stop. And that's a key, because this is we get to see more of this on the chapter next that we'll talk about. But what she's saying is the main characters and the main villains are the only thing that matters. So you saving the quote unquote brainless mob from their fears is not going to stop what's happening. You have to convince the powerful that things will not be bad. That's what I take from that. And then Arthur eventually gets the main dragon and Dragon Question, and at that point he puts his controller down and says that he basically he got what he needed out of it. His preparation's complete, and he understands his burden that he has to take on. And he says, "I must conquer the real dragon." And this also kind of gives a little bit of weight to my theory that the Excalibur that was made by Vulcan is going to have its own will at some point, because he hands the sword to Vulcan and he says, "Hoist Excalibur towards the heavens and it will show you Yu's whereabouts." And he doesn't understand that. So that's the end of 261. 262 starts. And so Vulcan says, "Hoist it the heavens." Like, what do you mean? And he's like, "Once you do, it should lead us to you." He's like, "I can't do that, man. I don't got any powers." Oh yeah, Licht is totally like he's confused as heck because he can't make sense of the reality around him, and I totally agree with you on that. I totally agree. So Arthur explains that Excalibur is a holy blade forged not just by your hands, but also by Lisa and you. So it naturally would know how to find them. So he hoists it up in the air, and Vulcan hoists it up in the air, right here, and it goes into the sky, and then almost like a locator spell, like if you're playing D&D or something, it shines and shows the direction of where you is. And he's like, "How the heck did you do that?" And he's like, "We will use teleportation magic to reach you." So here's where we're going to call it Dragon Quest because it's what it is. But in Dragon Quest, every single Dragon Quest, the main character gets a spell called Zoom, which lets you teleport to towns you've already visited. Well, this right here shows you that imagination in Adola is king. And Arthur just starts casting magic. He casts Zoom, and they fly off, and they find you, and you, back to another Soul Eater reference, you is no longer infernal. So I'm assuming because Adola is so close, if infernals are all infernals, Captain Haig, Rekka, if he's an infernal, you, they all look human now. But you, still possessed by Giovanni, looks like a Kishin from Soul Eater. Like the same eyes, everything. It's just blowing my mind. I don't know if it's just... Every time I see stuff like this, like I said last time, is it a cameo or is it something more? Yeah, Arthur is busted because of his imagination. So people should follow what he's doing. I wonder if his power set's going to change. I wonder if everyone's power set's going to change, if they believe it enough. Maybe it won't be just firepower. Maybe you'll see Arthur casting ice magic when needed, you know, because he played a video game that clearly has ice magic. I think it's called Crackle in Dragon Quest, or Crack. So you was just chilling on a fucking building, and he's waiting for the world to end so he can see it with his own eyes. And then behind him, in the frame, you get to see like a pixelated teleportation of Zoom. Although it says zap zap on there, so I'm assuming Arthur, when he comes down, he casts the zap or zapple spell from Dragon Quest. I think there's zap and there's zapple in the game. Zap is the single target, and zapple targets all monsters. And Arthur shows up, and Giovanni's like, what the heck? And then he doesn't understand how they got there. And then Vulcan's like screaming to give you back. And he's like, Giovanni says, I've already become one with you's body. As a matter of fact, I wanted to thank you. With this body, my dream will come true. It'll nourish me. And, Vulcan wants you to get his body back. And he's like, he points to the top of his head with the Band-Aid on it. He says, you're too late. I've already planted this parasite in you's brain. So we saw that earlier where we thought, thankfully, it doesn't look like it was true, that Giovanni and you switched places. And honestly, that would have been a really gruesome outcome. Even though it seemed like that's what the author was going for, it was a fake out. So Arthur immediately can see where the parasite is hiding. And with pinpoint accuracy, he supposedly takes out Giovanni for good. So I'm only saying supposedly because Giovanni is a cunning villain. And who knows how many backup parasites he has just out in the wild. So Arthur does this pinpoint laser shot from Excalibur, takes out Giovanni, and he does say something really cool. Because he has this very heroic moment with him. He says, men like you who clamber over the tiniest peaks at the world's surface in the end, you die knowing nothing. Get out of my sight, you filthy, cowardly insect. Like, if you are not rooting for Arthur in this series, if you hated Arthur from the beginning and you still hate him now, I don't know what's wrong with you. He's so cool. He's such a cool character. Yeah, he got one-shotted. Like, see you later, loser. But I'm still not counting him dead. He's too cunning of a villain. He could come back. Who knows? He could come back as a visual apparition if people can't let him go. Lisa, for example, is very traumatized by Giovanni. So we'll have to see. All right. And so we get you back. You wakes up. He still has, it looks like his face is still stitched up, so he might have to deal with that forever. Because if you remember when he first infernalized, it looked like his face was, I don't know, cut open or something. And so Vulcan starts thanking Arthur for what he's done. And then Arthur's like, don't hold back your praise. Praise me more. And he's like, I am the Night King. And it's thanks to you I've truly become the Night Thing, and for that I must thank you. And then Arthur zooms off once again after he detects Dragon. So he casts Zoom again, and Dragon is just chilling at a volcano, waiting for somebody. And Arthur shows up, says, the sheer despair of a powerful being like Dragon spurs the world towards its termination. So Arthur knows what's up. He knows that... to stop Adola from the continuing the cataclysm as is, that the powerful have to stop despairing. And Dragon is despairing either from propaganda from the evangelists or the fact that he's never had a true rival. Maybe that's what Arthur is fulfilling here. And he shows up, he says, I can't keep him waiting any longer. And Dragon is getting angry, just waiting. And then at the end of the chapter, Arthur basically says it's on his way. And it's really cool, like rival between them two. And I was still wondering if a dragon exists purely because of Arthur's imagination from playing Dragon Question. So these are really fun chapters. Very Arthur focused. Sumier basically told us what the end game is, but she could be holding back other things because she keeps showing up to shake our resolve as readers about where this is going. In the panel with Sumier too, you could see, you know how she was like upside down the first time she showed up before we went to the real world version of her? Well, now she was right side up, and it looked like either Inca or Amaterasu in the background. It was very hard to say who it was, but you got to see another pillar. Yeah. Boom. Totally. Giovanni's dead. I totally agree with that. He's just such an annoying villain. But Sumier is the mastermind of all this. She's like the most creepiest villain of Fire Force. But I did peek the 263 Raws. It is a giant battle. It's gonna be awesome. As soon as I get that done, I'll probably talk about Wednesday as normal. That's where I'm trying to stay on the schedule this time. So that if that means we're doing 2 chapters a week because we are behind, and we'll continue to do 2 chapters a week. But I'm really sad that we don't have an anime right now. Honestly, there's so much going on that I really would like to see an ongoing anime, and it could be 2 years maybe, or a year and a half when we get another anime. So yeah, speaking of Arthur versus Dragon, it is next chapter. I did peek at the Raws, but I want to be able to read what's going on, so I didn't spoil too much about it. But yeah, so that's Fire Force this week. Good times. If you're not a fan of Fire Force, now is the time to get into it. Check out the anime, check out the manga. You can get it Yen Press and all other kind of stuff like too. So on to the next subject. Black Clover, chapter 289. So last 2 chapters has been Asta coming to Knact's rescue. It looked like Knact was actually not going to live. And it also looked like he wanted to die based on his actions with his brother and how things turned out with his brother and how Yami ended up making him the vice captain. So Knact could use evil to take down evil, basically. Well, Asta showed up in the last chapter and was able to fight the 2 strongest devils that we've ever seen in Black Clover, Lilith and Nama. And as the advent of Cleathoth continues, you'll see more devils like this popping out at will. And that's really scary because this devil is very strong. So what happens is in the last chapter, Asta shows up and slashes Nama in 2. And Lilith says, what a shame, he got you first. And then she grabs Nama and becomes one with him and becomes an entirely new leveled up devil. And apparently the power level on this one is so massive that Knact is in the corner like pissing himself, basically. Yeah, super big sword. But because Asta can't detect magic, and clearly Libe can't either, he has no flipping clue what he's fighting right now. So Asta, in his I wouldn't say he's arrogant, but in his naive self says, you're probably incredibly awesome and all that, but I can't sense magic, so I can't really tell. And so they have a tussle, and they start fighting. And then Lilith Namalith, I don't know what you're going to call this devil now because they're combined in 2, decides to take a note out of Sephiroth's book, and cast Supernova. This giant big ball of ice and fire, I can only assume because Lilith Nama, I think, had ultimate fire and ultimate ice. and they were ridiculously powerful. Big giant moon-like structure, which is just a big ball of energy, shows up on top of the Spade Kingdom, and this new construct is interested in Asta because Asta is powerful enough to take them on, but also wants him to despair. Sound familiar? And she says, even if you're unarmed, everyone else, or even if you're unharmed by this big giant ball above the Spade Kingdom, everyone else will die. So she's planning on taking everybody else. And she's like, that sort of thing hurts, doesn't it? And what she wants to do is she wants to demoralize Asta, probably because she sees how powerful he is. So she's going for everybody else. And this is a move that you remember back from the Elf or the Eye of the Midnight Sun saga that Patry used on the Clover Kingdom with his like magic, and Julius had to use his time magic to stop every single piece of light swords. Yeah, mini meteor. It actually kind of, you know what? Spoilers for Final Fantasy VII and the Final Fantasy VII Remake. It does look like the meteor above Midgar at the end of the game. You're totally right about that. So she starts to doing the same move that Patry did, where Julius had to stop. He used time magic to stop every piece of light magic, and then was vulnerable because of it, and Patry was allowed to stab him. Looks similar to that. So she says grieve and then launches the ball. And Asta says, all you did was get bigger, because she combined into another devil. I got bigger too. First sword. So the Demon Slayer sword turns giant. And we've seen this already before, but not to the extent that it got at this joint. Like you can see in the panel right next to me how big it got. And it gets even bigger in the next panel. And Asta, before the chapter ends, is seen launching at this giant meteor, if you want to call it that. Sun, meteor, moon, whatever. Clearly that thing's nuked. What I did find interesting, though, in the last panel, you see Zora and not Vulcan. Zora and... Oh my god, why is his name... He's been gone for so long, his name is Magna. Sorry. Zora and Magna. And it's hiding into the like the forest or something, and he's like, just how big you're gonna get. And I noticed that what was interesting about this panel is that on the final episode of the anime, when they were doing a montage at the end of it, you saw Zora and Magna in the forest wearing these cloaks. So they probably did that in the anime, so the anime only viewers could be like, well, what happened to those two? And they kind of fast forward to this point where Zora and Magna have been training on their own or some kind of scheme on their own, and now they're here to join the battle. So that's pretty much it for this chapter. You know, it's interesting how Weekly Shonen Magazine, which is the magazine that hosts Fire Force and Seven Deadly Sins and what's the other one? Tokyo Revengers, which we're going to talk about next, and a couple of other really good mangas. Their chapters are weekly, like Black Clover, but they're so much longer. Shueisha chapters are just always 15 to 16 pages. Yeah, Zora and Magna have been gone since shortly before the Alpha arc ended, I think. I don't remember. I have to go back and reread the chapters, because I did rewatch the anime, and they had that episode where Magna was trying to go with Luck to the Heart Kingdom to train, but I couldn't remember if that even happened in the manga, or if Magna just disappeared on his own. So they're back, but yeah, it was a cool chapter, but it felt really short. But then as someone who reads a lot of Weekly Shonen Magazine type mangas, it just feels short because theirs are longer, probably because they're geared to a more older audience. But that's that. So we'll have to see what happens next week. What I'm really generally curious about is Asta clearly is super powerful now, but he still has a Achilles heel that he can only do that form for 5 minutes. So my question is it 5 minutes once per day? If you remember when he became Black Asta the first time, he could only do the form once per day, then eventually 2 per day, and then eventually like 3 or 4, but it took time. Is he going to be able to, do this twice now? I don't know. So Asta's got a time limit. He's got to take this out quickly, and then they also have to stop the advent as fast as possible. Otherwise, they're going to be overwhelmed with devils as powerful as this one. He was told he was weak. Got it. Okay. In my spare time, I should probably go back and reread some of those things. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens on that one. But so I asked you all for some recommendations on what I can watch right now, and one of you suggested Tokyo Revengers, and I did some research on it, and it was from Weekly Shonen Magazine, which I'm a big fan of the stuff that they produce. Like I said, I like Fire Force and Seven Deadly Sins, and Eden Zero, which, God, I'm so angry that Eden Zero is in Netflix jail. Eden Zero is going on right now, and I wanted to watch it, but it's a Netflix jail. I'll have to look and see if I can VPN it or something. Maybe it's in a different service that I have access to. But when you're in Netflix jail, Netflix does not simulcast. So you have to wait until all the episodes of the season are out, and then they compile them in and do whatever, and then they release it like 6 months to a year later. It's super annoying. So Eden Zero is another Weekly Shonen Magazine manga or anime I would like to see, but Tokyo Revengers on Crunchyroll, so we'll get to see that. But so I checked it out, and I was really I was intrigued by it. It reminds me of Erased in terms of its premise. So the main character, whose name escapes me right now, he's 26 years old, and he's kind of a loser, lives by himself, and he works at looks like a bookstore or like a DVD selling store. And he's lamenting over the fact that his middle school girlfriend was killed by a local gang. And when he's walking home from work to the train, he gets pushed off the train, pushed off the tracks. He's laying on the tracks. And before the train hits him, he goes back in time to when he was in middle school, and he was a part of a small-time gang of friends of his. And this kind of like starts off the story pretty quickly. So it's the same premise as Erased. In Erased, the main character goes back in time to save a friend of his from being murdered, and it turns out that there's a bigger conspiracy going on, and it kind of looks like Tokyo Revengers is going down that same route. However, it's clearly going to be a much longer story, and it's clearly taking a direction more of like a gang crime drama. So the main character goes back in time, and he's doing all the things people would do when they went back in time. At first, he thought he was just dead and reliving his life before his eyes before he dies. And he eventually meets up with his old friends, and they get into a fight with the gang, part of the gang, this is how I'm taking it, that was responsible for the death of his first girlfriend and her brother. And they get their butt whooped by this gang, and they become basically subservient to that gang. So their gang gets absorbed by this bigger gang. I can't, I'm still new to this series. I can't think of the gang's name. As I go on, I'll get all these terms down. But it's clear to him at that point that these events are what led to the death of this girl. And so after he gets into a fight, he actually goes to her apartment, and he goes to see her. And then he makes the determination that he's going to change things. And so then he meets her little brother in a park. And he basically flat out tells him that he's from the future and that he needs to man up basically and protect his sister. And the little brother is actually not, doesn't think he's crazy, is not taken aback by it. And as soon as the little brother, his name escapes me too. Like I said, I've only seen the episode once, and I need to get acquainted with all these characters. But he shakes his hand, and as soon as he shakes his hand, he goes back into the future. And don't let me leave this part out either. Before he went to the past, he was about to get nailed by a train. But because of what he did with the little brother, he wakes up in a hospital, and this person walks in the room, a much older version of a person, and it's the little brother, and he remembered everything that happened. And so then the main character asks him if the girl also survived, and it turns out she did not. And then the little brother pleads that he goes back in time again to make things right. and then the episode ends. So it's clear that that's going to be the theme of the series, is that these two pair are going to be going back in time multiple times and trying to correct this. Now, I didn't do any other reading on this, so I didn't spoil this. So I'm just kind of going to do my own speculation. It's clear that you can go read the manga and catch up right now. But what I'm going to do is I'll cover this weekly on the episodes, and then I'll read the manga afterwards. But what I don't know is happening here is when they go back in time, does he have to start over from the same spot every time, like in ReZero, without a save point? Or if he goes back in time again, does he go start where the last start point was, where in this case was the park with the little brother? Those are some questions that I had at the end of the episode. But from the images that I saw online, like the one I have here, this is one of the promotional images, it looks like he's going to try to infiltrate this gang and get to the higher ranks to take it down from the inside, making them unable to kill the girl in the future. And the main character, I think, was like 26 years old, and he's got such an interesting transformation. As a 26-year-old, he looks lame. Like the main character's in the middle here, the blonde kid. He clearly doesn't dye his hair anymore in the future. He looks a lot thinner. The middle school version of him looks more menacing, more, I guess you could say, masculine than his future counterpart. And so it's going to be interesting to see how that goes back and forth, because as things are happening, I wonder what kind of changes are going to happen to the main character in the future as well, not just the things around him. So I will be covering this anime every Wednesday, just giving my thoughts on it. And then since it is in Weekly Shonen Magazine, I will probably cover it later on. Like I said, I'm a big fan of their publication, only because it's a shonen magazine, but it's on the older side of things. Like if you, it's more targeted towards like college students, and that's why I tend to gravitate to those stories more, because I feel like they're more interesting. Don't get me wrong, I love me some Black Clover, but not every single thing in Shonen Jump is super interesting anymore. Especially now that they're doing their series aren't going to be long going anymore. Like Demon Slayer's over. Demon Slayer was good. I guarantee you Dr. Stone's about to end. If you're reading Dr. Stone, it's about to end. I give it one more arc and it's done. I've heard Jujutsu Kaisen's only going to last another 2 years, or at least the author said that. That doesn't mean anything, though. You know, Shonen Jump or Shueisha could come in and be like, "Here, have some more money, do more chapters." Who knows? Because it's a big hit right now. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not comparing the two. I just prefer the older storylines. I mean, I'm more of a fan of seinen manga, but seinen, the only one seinen I'm reading right now is Berserk, and that's about it. So, yeah. Check out this anime. Tell me what you think about it. Tell me if you want me to keep covering it. I'm going to keep covering it because I find it interesting. But yeah. But that's all I've got this week. So we were blessed with 2 awesome chapters of Fire Force. We had a really interesting chapter of Black Clover. Next week is the next one. I don't think they're doing a hiatus or not a hiatus. They're not skipping a week. And then Tokyo Revengers. And then hopefully I will be able to start my World Trigger coverage next month, because I went on hiatus this month, but apparently it's coming back next month, but we'll see. So that's all I got. So I hope you all are having a good night. Go check out